DocTalk is brought to you by Boehringer Ingelheim Vetmedica Inc., the makers of Pyramid 5 plus Presponse SQ, a market leader in combination respiratory vaccines.
Hi there, I'm Dr. Dan Thompson from the College of Veterinary Medicine at Kansas State University. We're really glad you joined us this morning on DocTalk as we're going to discuss how to trailer horses. Whether we're talking about the trailer itself or talking about horse health, Dr. Chris Blevins will be joining us, who's an equine veterinarian and assistant professor at Kansas State's College of Veterinary Medicine. Glad you joined us today. It's bound to be a great show.
Say this is a calf that's been run through the chute a few too many times. Going through the chute stresses cattle, causing them not to eat like they should. Luckily, Pyramid 5 plus Presponse SQ provides proven protection against key respiratory diseases in a single shot, with just one trip through the chute. Talk to your veterinarian about Pyramid 5 plus Presponse SQ, and soon your calves will relax and eat like a whole different animal.
Closed caption brought to you by AgriLabs, the perfect pairing of performance and value.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's always good to have you here, Dr. Blevins. Folks, this is Dr. Chris Blevins, who's an assistant professor here at Kansas State's College of Veterinary Medicine, and he is part of our equine field services team, meaning he's going out and actually doing calls.
Yes,
and
right.
Seeing horses. And,
Yep.
and we're going to talk about something that a lot of people do, and that's trailer horses. Whether they're, we haul horses all over the place, different events, and something that definitely needs to be talked about.
Right. And there's a lot of different segments that we can sure talk about when it comes to trailers, and I think probably the first part to talk about is actually the trailer itself. And when you look at a trailer, or people, even owners, as they buy a trailer, what are they looking for and what kind of horses do they have? All those things play in part of what they're going to get, and I think size of the horse themselves is actually a part of that too, whether you got a draft horse or a miniature horse, kind of what kind of trailer you need for those different situations and number of horses that you're going to travel with. And
Right.
I think that as you put those things together, they're all very important. And then if you buy a used trailer or a trailer that you maybe have had, what things to kind of watch for or look at when it comes to that. So.
Yeah. Well, let's just start out with some of the different types of trailers. I know that there's different ways to load trailers, the way the horses ride, number of horses, the two-horse trailer and different things to that. Are there different things to be aware of or look at based on the way the position the horses are going to be riding in the trailer?
I think those are very good points. Yeah, there's what you call the most typical horse trailer is a slant load trailer. So meaning that the horse kind of stands at a slant direction in the trailer. So the head is either going to be angled slightly off to the side of one side of the trailer, while the hind end is kind of more distal part of the trailer, the hind end of the trailer, and they'll kind of be at an angle while riding. So they're not necessarily parallel with the front of the trailer, they're at a slight angle, and that's the most common trailer that most horses have or horse owners have for their horses. And you can get some that are up to 11 horse slants, and there can be some really large ones with a lot of horses in them. And I think that a main thing with those slant loads is owners understand making sure horses get along because they're right next to each other, whether they kick. A lot of the times they have bite guards that are in between, so they don't necessarily can't bite each other, but their feet are exposed, and so some horses can kick each other while they're in the trailer. So making sure that they get along with their kind of trailer mates is important in those slant loads.
Well, it's a good time for us to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more specifically about things to look for in the trailer, whether it's flooring or sides, and loading and unloading and different things like that.
Sounds good.
Well, appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
And we appreciate you watching DocTalk. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back with Dr. Blevins in a minute.
This segment was brought to you by Brute Cattle Equipment, makers of the Brute Stealth Hydraulic Chute. If the chute fits, swear by it. Visit our website for more information. This Meet the Veterinarian is brought to you by Merck Animal Health, the science of healthier animals. Dr. Brian Hudapal has been with the Veterinary Medical Clinic in Williamsburg, Iowa since 2001. He works primarily with cow-calf and feedlot operations and enjoys working with ultrasound, embryo transfer, and has been in charge of the heifer development program for the past 10 years. He and his wife have 3 children, and he enjoys spending time with his family as well as golfing and hunting.
As dependable as the sunrise, in dairy parlors, open pastures, on ranches and feed yards across America. A place where reputation is more than a name, where the science of healthier animals is a way of life. It's the responsibility that drives who we are and what we do. Every decision, every day. It's your livelihood and our responsibility.
The Kansas State University College of Veterinary Medicine is a leader in food animal research and education. Our researchers are constantly expanding the knowledge of animal health and food safety. Through the Veterinary Health Center and the Kansas State Veterinary Diagnostic Lab, we provide practical services for animal producers. Home of the Beef Cattle Institute, the college is committed to animal welfare training and research. The Kansas State University College of Veterinary Medicine, knowledge and service for the future of animal production.
Hi, I'm Kevin Ochsner, host of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman and Colorado Rancher. Join me each week as the National Cattlemen's Beef Association brings you the latest updates in industry information and market news. Plus, each week we provide important educational information and features on cattlemen from across the country just like you. And we can't forget our favorite cowboy poet, Baxter Black. Join me for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman, debuting Tuesday nights at 8:30 Eastern, right here on RFD TV.
Beef producers asked for it, and Norbrook delivers. Introducing new Enroflox 100, the newest addition to your arsenal for treating bovine respiratory disease. Enroflox 100 is an FDA-approved, ready-to-use injectable antimicrobial solution to treat BRD associated with Mannheimia hemolytica, Pasteurella multocida, and Histophilus somni in beef and non-lactating dairy cattle. Administered SQ as a multiple-day therapy. Consult with your veterinarian today about Enroflox 100, the new choice. Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
This segment is brought to you by Norbrook Laboratories, manufacturers of Enroflox 100, the newest addition to your arsenal for treating bovine and swine respiratory disease.
Folks, welcome back to DocTalk. I'm Dr. Dan Thompson here with Dr. Chris Blevins, and we both work at the College of Veterinary Medicine at Kansas State University. Dr. Blevins is an equine veterinarian who is an assistant professor here in the equine section of the equine veterinary health services. And what we're talking about today is trailers, and we're talking about trailering horses. And let's start out with an inspection of the trailer and some of the things that you like people to take a look at.
Yeah, I think, when you inspect a trailer, whether it's new or used, there's, typical things that are very important even for the health or safety of the horse themselves while they're in there. Not including the lights and hookups and everything that goes along with that safety of just going down the road. When you look at the horse trailer, the flooring is crucial for the horse because that's where they're standing the whole time during the trip, and making sure the flooring doesn't give out. And so there's some floors that might be rot if it's wood, some even fiberglass if they get kind of loose, or even metal flooring, aluminum flooring on some of those horses. Maybe they could have holes or loose. And so making sure everything is nice and tight is very important, because there's going to be potentially 1,000, maybe even 2,000 pounds on some of those boards, depends on the size of the horse. You want to make sure that nothing goes down through that, especially while going down the road.
Absolutely.
The other thing is, the grip or the traction within a trailer. And some horse owners, they don't think too much about it. And a lot of stock trailers, they can be fairly slick for a horse, especially if they have metal shoes on.
Yep.
And those things can cause the horse to do a lot of slipping around when the owner hits their brakes or accelerates. And so you want to make sure good traction, and a lot of the times some kind of a rubber mat on top of those type of floors negates a lot of that slipperiness, especially if the horse has shoes on.
Well, you hear some of the horror stories of the boards rotting out and things like that, and even cattle. If you want to see an animal that's anxious, take away its footing. Yeah. And really increases the stress level of these animals.
Yes, yeah, and it's just crucial when they're going down the road that they have good footing, and yeah, horses the same thing. They'll get really anxious if they aren't having the correct footing, and that might be why they don't load into trailers later on with a bad experience.
I was going to say, they kind of remember those.
They do.
What about ventilation in trailers?
Yeah, that's another good point. Whenever you're looking at any trailer, whether buying or you have your own trailer, airflow is very important for these horses. You have to remember, too, their ambient temperature is going to be similar to that of cattle, and it's going to be that 70, 60 degree range. And when it gets a little hot, horses will sweat. And then when they start to sweat, condensation, and then it starts to build up even more, and that could even be an aspect of respiratory diseases. But making sure airflow is important. There's a lot of up vents that are up above the horse, side vents that are in there. So making sure they're open is very important, even in the winter. Making sure that those are open for ventilation. A lot of people try to trap them down and shut everything up to keep them warm, but that can cause problems.
Well, we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about how to get them in and get them out of those trailers. Great information on, and especially on the ventilation in the floors. We're sure glad that you watched DocTalk this morning. We're going to be back with Dr. Blevins here in a minute. Thanks for joining us.
This tip brought to you by Baytril 100 Enrofloxacin Injectable, now approved for use in controlling BRD in high-risk cattle. Baytril 100, right the first time, whether it's controlling BRD in high-risk cattle or treating BRD.
Hi there, folks. I'm Dr. Dan Thompson, and this week's On the Farm Tip, sponsored by Bear Animal Health, focuses on low-stress cattle handling of sick cattle. When a calf is identified with bovine respiratory disease in its home pen, we have to move it to the hospital. Those animals should not be run or stirred up as they're sick with a respiratory disease. If they get to the hospital pen system and we're going to have a delay before we doctor them, be sure to give those animals shade, water, and a little bit of hay. Now, when we move those animals through our system, through the tub, it's important not to mix larger animals with smaller animals, as those animals can become trampled or get pinned underneath the large animals, and the outcome's not good. Low-stress cattle handling, early disease identification, all of these things are important to assure animal health. This is your On the Farm Tip from Bear Animal Health, and I'll see you down the road.
With BRD, every second counts. And when you get new high-risk cattle, you've got a choice to make. You can either take your chances and wait and see what happens, or you can take charge of BRD. Right from the start, treat bacteria up front with Baytril 100 Enrofloxacin Injectable, now approved by the FDA for BRD metaphylaxis in high-risk cattle. Ask your veterinarian about Baytril 100 and make it your go-to drug to control BRD in high-risk cattle or for treatment of BRD. Baytril 100, right the first time.
This hog is head over hoof for meal made from U.S. soybeans. Now, one hog isn't that impressive, but suppose we add another, and another, and another. Before long, you've got billions of hungry customers around the world all clamoring for the same thing. Our soybeans. Learn more about the billion-dollar appetite of animal agriculture at BeyondTheElevator.com. Brought to you by America's soybean farmers and their checkoff.
Your cattle are often at risk of respiratory disease caused by Mycoplasma bovis, but MPB Guard vaccine can help prevent those problems early. MPB Guard delivers proven efficacy against Mycoplasma bovis, even on young calves just 45 days old. It also gives you the convenience of an initial 2-dose sub-Q vaccination series, so help guard your cattle from costly respiratory disease caused by Mycoplasma bovis. Just ask your veterinarian about MPB Guard vaccine.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
True Test Group, weighing systems, electronic identification EID, electric fencing, and dairy automation systems help farmers and ranchers around the world manage the performance of their livestock for ultimate profitability.
Hi there, and welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thompson here at the College of Veterinary Medicine at Kansas State University, and I'm joined by veterinarian and equine practitioner, Dr. Chris Blevins, who is in charge of the equine field services here at Kansas State University's Veterinary Health Center. And Dr. Blevins, it's always good to have you here. And we're talking about trailers, horses, moving them, hauling them, but you got to get them in and got to get them out.
That's right.
And it seems to be, you know, as a former practitioner with some horses, that seemed to be some of our issues. Is you always had, well, this one, why don't you come out the farm? This one just won't load, or,
right.
You know, I don't think I want to unload this one because it was so hard getting him on the trailer to begin with. So, what are some things that we can do?
You know, I think that as a veterinarian, there can be some bad wrecks just getting in and out of a trailer for a horse. And I think, you know, like we had mentioned earlier of different segments as far as bad experiences and getting them in and out sure play an important role. I think your veterinarian can get involved with helping with sedation and some other things if there's anxiety and that, sure, you can ask your veterinarian for the horse, yeah, for most parts of that. I guess you have to ask their own MD on the other aspect, but you know, I think there's the biggest wreck that I see with the owners loading horses is they maybe are pulling up to a docking area. And it's supposed to be so the horse really doesn't have to step up very far, but what they leave is a gap in between the dock and the trailer, and then there's a hole. And so that hole or slit is where undoubtedly the horse is going to step and potentially fracture their leg. And so understanding the surroundings of before you even start to load the horse into the trailer is very important. Whether you need to back up to a hill, if you're going to back up to the hill, make sure it's butted up against the hill right. So there's no gap in there. And so that's one area when you're talking about just regular type trailers and loading.
And then they aren't jumping and
right.
and jumping in and jumping out. Because that's one thing I found with the cattle. If they jump in, they've pretty much figured out that they're going to have to jump out.
Yes, yeah, and that could be something too. Some owners they'll have them on asphalt and they're jumping out of those trailers onto asphalt, and then that's a wreck too. They just slip and fall down. So just kind of thinking ahead before you load and unload is something we maybe just take for granted, but just understand that of the horse and what they have on their feet, so those shoes.
And I keep going back to the cattle experience, but when we ship cattle, it's estimated that half the stress of shipping is at the time of loading.
Yep.
And so thinking about that
Same
when you're
thing.
hauling horses and teaching them that.
Yep.
Anything as far as, you know, once they're in the trailer, you know, we talked about the tie-ups.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's also, you know, very important. And the other thing about some of those trailers too that we were mentioning is some of them are actually straight loads. So the horse has to load themselves into those trailers, and that can be a little anxious for those horses too.
Oh, because you can't go in.
They can't go. You can't go in with them, and so usually they have to load themselves in those like 2-horse slants and things. So that can be a little bit dangerous.
Absolutely. You got to have that way out.
Right.
If you're gonna go
yes.
up in there.
Yep.
Well, when we come back, we'll talk more about the health of the horse
Yeah.
and length of the haul and some of those things.
Yeah.
We appreciate you watching DocTalk. This is a very important issue with owning horses is when we haul them. We're going to return with Dr. Blevins here after the break. We're glad you joined us.
Hello, I'm Dr. Chris Blevins at Kansas State University Veterinary Health Center, and I'm with you for a horse tip. Got to remember that a horse's feet are very important, and there's a aspect of everyday routine, just moving around, and use on the farm or in performance. When you look at a horse's hoof and the hoof capsule, cleaning out the hoof is very important because they can get a lot of debris. They can get rocks inside the grooves of their foot. They could even get a nail. So cleaning out the horse's feet are going to be very important, and assessing on a day-to-day basis, and while you're on rides, taking and having a hoof pick is also going to be important to keeping everything clean and safe. So again, keep your farrier and your veterinarian involved for keeping your hoof healthy and free of debris.
Say this is a calf that's been run through the chute a few too many times. Going through the chute stresses cattle, causing them not to eat like they should. Luckily, Pyramid 5 plus Presponse SQ provides proven protection against key respiratory diseases in a single shot, with just one trip through the chute. Talk to your veterinarian about Pyramid 5 plus Presponse SQ, and soon your calves will relax and eat like a whole different animal.
Hi there, I'm Dr. Dan Thompson. Be sure to join me at the 47th Annual AABP Convention, September 18th through the 20th. I encourage anybody that's involved in the beef or dairy veterinary profession to attend. Reconnect with other professionals and learn about the practical applications in the beef and dairy industry. There will be scientific sessions, clinical forums, and over 100 animal health exhibitors. If you're a practitioner, a technician, or a vet student, join me at AABP. I'm Dr. Dan Thompson, and I'll see you in Albuquerque.
Hello friends, I'm Ernie Rodina.
And I'm Dawn Dawson with the Better Horses Radio Show.
For over 9 years, we've been bringing the Better Horses Radio Show to markets all across the Midwest. We talk about God, lots about horses.
We talk about cows, we talk about horse health, we talk to top trainers, and we even talk about Roy Rogers.
We're having a blast with Better Horses Radio Show and would love to take it to a market near you.
So visit our website at betterhorsesradio.com and let us or your local radio station know you'd like to hear it in your area.
The Better Horses Radio Show is unbelievable.
You know, I think people are just kind of born with a passion.
I wouldn't be where I am today without that horse.
Oh, I'm not passionate about horses. That's just something that's in here. I can't explain it.
Some people go to a job every day. I just go do what I love to do. That's all I know is horse.
The bottom line, we're for the horse. It's whatever we can do to make life better for the horse, wherever they are, whatever they do.
It's just magic, that's all. They got me.
If we always do what's right for the horse, we will never go wrong.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thompson here with Dr. Chris Blevins, who's an assistant professor and head of equine field services here at the Veterinary Health Center at Kansas State University. We're talking about horse health now and hauling horses. And so what are some of the things that people need to generally watch for in the health of their horse?
You know, I think, tying everything together, that's the most crucial part of when the horse is in the trailer. We talked about ventilation already, that's very important. But the length of travel, some horse owners and trainers that have their horses in those trailers for long periods of time, even hours. And that could potentially be a problem for stress of the horse and maybe could cause respiratory disease. They usually recommend that a horse gets a break or is allowed to get out of the trailer every 4 to 6 hours. And so that allows them to stretch, get some fresh air, and then get back in and go ahead and proceed with traveling. So those things are very important when it comes to length of travel for the horse and potentially preventing respiratory disease based on that aspect.
What are some places that people are looking for, when they're traveling and they have a horse and they're trying to look for a place, to unload? What are some places that...
I think that's a good point because, you can always say, well, you just need to stop. Well, where to stop can be a little bit troublesome, and sometimes the truck stop isn't the best place to get your horse out and travel around when there's trucks and vehicles around. I usually tell people either rest stops, but you have to be careful. Some of those rest stops, just even a side road or a country road, pull over, get them out, walk them up and down a non-traffic area that's not as well traveled as others, just to get them out in a safe area.
What about water and feed in during transport?
Water and feed I think is important. They should. A lot of people have hay in front of them the whole time in front of their heads, and I think that's good as long as it doesn't get too dusty. And the water, usually when they're stopping, making sure they get enough water usually during that stop or rest in 4 to 6 hours is important for that aspect of the health of the horse, and just making sure that they have access to that and freshness of that water during that time.
Kind of like what we would expect when we're traveling.
That's right. Yeah, we always want something to drink after a while and something to eat, and the same thing for a horse. Don't neglect them just because we're heading down the road. Don't forget that they're back there and they need those same aspects.
Any closing thoughts on trailering horses?
The only other thing that I always tell owners if they're going on long trips is the tying up of the horse or how they tie up that horse. you have to remember that a lot of times they need to take and allow that head to drop lower than the shoulders so they can evacuate dust and debris, whether they need to cough. So keeping them a little bit loose as far as tying them. Obviously you don't want their foot to get caught in the lead rope, but allowing them to drop their head down while long trips are going to be very helpful in that aspect.
Well, it's been a great show. Really appreciate you being here today.
No problem. Thank you very much for everything.
Well, appreciate it. Folks, Dr. Chris Blevins, he's an assistant professor here at Kansas State University College of Veterinary Medicine. If you want to know more about what Chris and I do here at Kansas State University, you can find us on the web at www.vet.ksu.edu. Remember, we always recommend that you work with your local practitioner or local veterinarian. Thanks for joining us today on Doc Talk. I'm Dr. Dan Thompson here from the College of Veterinary Medicine at Kansas State University, and I'll see you down the road.
Closed caption brought to you by AgriLabs, the perfect pairing of performance and value.
For more information about this program or previous programs, go to DocTalkTV.com. Doc Talk was brought to you by Boehringer Ingelheim Vetmedica Inc., the makers of Pyramid 5 plus Presponse SQ, a market leader in combination respiratory vaccines. The BQA Tip of the Day, sponsored by Boehringer Ingelheim Vetmedica Inc.
Hey there, folks. Welcome to today's Beef Quality Assurance Tip of the Day. And whenever you go through a beef quality assurance assessment, whether you use the tool for feedlots, stocker, or cow-calf operations, some of the things that go into feed accessibility, water accessibility, and cattle comfort are going to be checking the water tanks, which we should have clean, ample, fresh supply of water available. We have great management of our water tanks and great management of our feed bunks, and we make sure that the animals have fresh, ample feed supplied in bunks that they can reach and water supply that's available with enough space. Cattle comfort comes in the pen. If we have mud in the pen, we need to get that box blade out or our loader out and start to clear a spot where those animals have a comfortable place to lay down. Water tanks, feed bunks, and cattle comfort in the pen, all part of Beef Quality Assurance Tip of the Day.